And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and we are opening, we are live, and a few technological glitches, but it appears we have overcome them. And I'm delighted to welcome back to the set John Martin. Now is in his capacity, his full-time job. He's an educator. And John, I want to thank you for carving out an hour to come on City Focus, and we'll discuss whatever we decide we'll discuss tonight. You were a Republican candidate for a Board of Ed this past fall, and as an educator, I say to myself, with 21 years teaching in the New London Public Schools, if anybody was eminently qualified to serve on the New London Board of Education, it was you. I know you had my vote.
Well, thank you.
And my point being is, the GOP across the board, mayor, council, board, we got skunked. And as an educator, what was your experience? From the moment you decided that you would do this and take this task on seriously and get on the ballot, and because it's the first time.
It was. In August, I was kind of, I was approached, and would you be willing? Even if you don't want to commit fully to this. We could always, if we can find somebody who really wants this, we can always substitute you. And they call it a placeholder, I understand. And so I said, yeah, okay, that's no problem. But very quickly I started thinking more and more about my time in New London and walking the halls of New London High School, and for a few years Betty Dover, and how much I loved my job and my kids. And I wanted to really started feeling that I want to be able to, I'm not going to go back into the classroom there. That ship has sailed. But I can serve it another way. And so I told Kat, I called, the chairman up, and I said, well, I'm going to do it for real. This was in September. And September's never a good time to start a campaign when you've never done it before. And you're running under the minority party. As you know, and most people probably know, not too many Democrats, if any, knocked on any doors, or had many events, or even showed up at the one debate that hearing these voices.
Unbelievable. This campaign cycle, the Democrats did not show up, and I've had people pass comment to me about that, and it's really a sad state of affairs, and then to have them all get elected.
It was disappointing, but it's not surprising. When if you look at the sheer numbers, there's 7 registered Democrats for every 1 registered Republican, and not as many independents as one would think. So when even though both parties really had very low turnouts, percentage-wise, an equivalent number of Democrats showing up to vote, percentage speaking, are just they're gonna win, and I think that's what they were counting on, and to some extent that's what happened.
Well, and it continues to happen. Since a dozen years ago, 2011. New London changed its form of government from a city council, city manager form of government to an elected mayor. We've now had 7 elections, and at the council level, we've only had 3 Republicans elected over these 7 cycles. Adam Spracacci got elected once, and yours truly got elected twice, singularly. Everybody else has been a Democrat. And at the board level, Rob Perot got elected once and did not seek re-election. So it is a steep hill.
Yes, it is, and I think
Not insurmountable, but it's very steep.
by no means insurmountable. And I think that I would have loved to have seen more votes at the end of the day for myself, but I mean I literally ran a campaign in a couple of months, and that was with I injured my back, and so it was. It was one of those, it felt like being back in boot camp again, where it's just, embrace the suck and grind on. So, but it was a learning experience. I mean, any teacher who tells you that they've got nothing left to learn is somebody you probably don't want to be taking their class. And so it was a good experience for me. I've got a notebook full of do's and don'ts. And and I think that one of the things that we need to educate people in is that local politics, really, it doesn't matter. I mean, what Joe Biden says and what Donald Trump says and Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and, any of these people say it really doesn't matter to the city of New London. It has almost no impact on what happens in the city council. It really doesn't have much impact what happens in the mayor's office. And honestly, it has almost no impact whatsoever on what's going on in the Board of Education. In the board, which is what I'm focusing on, it's all about providing a quality education for every student to make them college or career ready and to make them
Be prepared to be good citizens.
be prepared to be good citizens. And it's public schools throughout the state, throughout the nation are failing in all of these things somewhat miserably. And I think that, we need to stop looking at, distractions and diversions and things that pull us away and focus in on the core mission. Reading scores are down, not just in New London, but across the state and the nation. Mathematics skills are abysmal across the nation. And in the state of Connecticut, a child in high school is required to take 1 semester in a class called government. And 1 semester as a graduation requirement. I think
What does that mean? Does that mean federal government, state government, local government, county government?
In 1 semester, you cram in an awful lot, and we used to the text that we used through most of my career at New London, for example.
Because that's what you teach.
Yes,
Social studies,
yes.
civics, government.
Economics, world
History.
history, U.S. history, criminal justice, economics. I did psychology, world religions. So I taught a lot of different courses there. And teaching civics was always one of my favorite, although we had to call it government. And we really hit we end up having a very limited amount of time, so we try to hit the students with the basics. And having 1 semester and a very short semester at that, you're lucky if you can squeeze in like some basic principles of citizenship. Where are the roots of the government? It's I used to spend more time than they liked on the Constitution and the guiding principles that inspired the authors of the Constitution. Where did they get these wonderful ideas for? I used to teach the Constitution as the perfect recipe for government. And the students, and the only thing I've ever made students memorize in 26 years of teaching, and I still make my civics girls at the school I teach in now, memorize the preamble. And I will run into students today that I taught in 1999 at Benny Dover Jackson Middle School who'll sit there with their little kids, their little 8 and 9-year-olds, and Mr. Martin, I still remember it. And they'll recite that preamble letter perfect, and then I'll see the little one chiming in. So not only is mom and dad remembering the preamble, they're teaching it to their children. And I've had that happen more than once. And I'm telling you, Marty, that makes a man's heart, proud.
Well, and it should. I mean, and it's important. And I don't know if the youth are getting enough of that. I have been privileged during my tenure on council to have been invited by Fred Driscoll
Yes.
to address his AP classes about local government. Only A class.
Right.
Never mind a semester. A class on local government to the advanced placement. And it was, I thought, very, very interesting. I mean, it would be a number of the students that would be genuinely interested in what's going on, and I think others took advantage of it as kind of a nap time.
Yep.
For, well, we got a guest. We're not going to be quizzed on this one, so we can take this one off. But I enjoyed it and prepared and tried to do and give the kids a good, healthy dose of what local government's all about and what what its purpose is. I mean, it's our local government that decides on how much money is going to go to
So much.
education, police, fire, recreation. What's important to you, and how are you going to effectuate these things?
And this is absolutely true. And once again, when it's a 1 semester course, I mean, we did the roots of how our government was evolved into what it was, and then we studied the Constitution and broke it down. We got into some Supreme Court cases and learned how the different branches of government work and interact. And if you were really lucky, you might get into some local politics, which I think is criminal. Because honestly, this is where you're going to have the most impact. This is Connecticut, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? We're never going to swing a national contest. And this is New London. We're never going to swing a Senate race on our own. But New London, you can swing a mayor race. You can swing the city council and who sits on it. You can decide who's going to be on your Board of Education, making the decisions that influence everything from whether or not your streets are going to be cleaned and repaved, whether or not your trash is going to be collected, whether or not the kids are actually going to get a good community center, how our parks are going to be maintained, recreational programs, how money is going to be spent in the schools that your children are going to be taught in. That's where your voice is going to make the big difference.
And ironically, the local elections get the least participation outside of referendums.
Right.
It's ironic because the presidential election will get the highest. And as you noted earlier, whoever is sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is not really having nightmares or dark thoughts or pleasant thoughts about what's happening here in New London.
No, the Whaling City is really not on there. I think the only time, a president really thinks about us is the Whaling City is when it's their turn to do the commencement speech at the Coast Guard Academy. And they always say something nice about New London, and they get back on their plane and
away they go.
And away they go. And that's okay. And I'm not saying that being involved in national politics isn't important. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be watching the debates. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be knocking doors for,
the candidate
of your choice. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to knock doors for them. But I also encourage you to knock doors for your neighbor who's running for the city council, your neighbor, who's running for the Board of Ed. Getting involved gives you not only ownership, it also gives you a sense of the process, and it gives you a sense of empowerment. And let's be honest, if when I get a seat on the Board of Education 2 years from now, and I will, when I get that seat, I'm going to listen to everybody, of course, but isn't it human nature to sit there and say, well, Marty, of course I'm going to make time for you. You knocked doors for me. You know, you were there for me. You supported me. And any politician's going to remember that. And that's natural. That's human nature. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't scratch my back, I'm not going to scratch yours, because that's absurd. That's not what public service is all about. Unfortunately, that seems to be what our opposition party kind of lives by as their motto. And we deserve better than that, New London.
And in regards to New London, and your experience in the classroom, how much, I'm going to use the term interference, does the state of Connecticut interject into education within our entire state, and how much latitude does that give the local board to effectuate and mold things to meet our community needs?
It's I spent a few years in New London High School when we were gifted with the special master.
Yes.
And
I was going to go there, but you beat me to it.
I was a member of the Student Governance Council, and so we met in committees. We talked about this is what the state says we need to improve, and we would propose, and this was made up of parents, faculty, I think a couple of parents, and administrators. And it was one of those oftentimes one of those deals where we're willing to let you do what you think is best, as long as it's in this basket. So as long as you do what we kind of want you to do, you can spend your money however you want to. But it's the state did take a lot of control over New London, and I think they're still.
They're up in Willimantic, Wyndham.
They're still. Bridgeport's probably going to get their door knocked on again. New Britain's, on the fence. And so, the only reason why New Haven seems like it's holding strong is because Yale's dumping a ton of money and resources. So, the nice thing about Yale being in New Haven is that Yale University has a vested interest in propping up and supporting their public schools. So that you see that.
And the community at large.
And the community at large.
I mean, it's significantly more than we see out of Connecticut College.
Yeah, and although I had 2 student teachers from Conn College, and I've had interns working with me in the classroom, because they do have a school of education there. At least they did when I was there. And they were good, solid candidates, and they worked hard, and they showed genuine interest in the students of New London and their education. And you've seen, like with Conn College, I think you've seen this on again, off again romance between the town and the gown, and as the old phrase goes. And I would like to see, one of the things I wanted to do when I was in the board was go to Conn College and say, help. It's can we get some tutors? I mean, New London, like many cities in the state, we're struggling with bringing up our math scores.
And we've got 3 colleges in New London.
Yes. Mitchell College, Conn College, Coast Guard Academy, and with the Coast Guard Academy, these young men and women live a pretty regimented life. And I know that, having been a college student myself, I know that, Conn College, Mitchell College, students are busy. Many of them have a full course load. Many of them have challenging classes. But I would love to see more tutoring. I'd love to see more involvement with these students. And also too, and this is something that I'd also feel very strongly about, is the trades. New London was gradually moving into opening things up to electric boat. But my last 5 or 6 years at New London High School, when I would bring up the trades, or I'd steer a kid to one of the unions, one of the trade unions around here, I'd get called out on the carpet. Our students are all going to go to college. They don't need to be, blue collar workers. And I'm sitting there saying, my dad was a blue collar worker. My dad was a plumber, came off the boat from Portugal. I mean, my dad's business was successful. And he probably made more money when he was running his business. He was more successful and put more money in the bank every year than the superintendent probably does. Doing honest work.
Yep.
Skilled work. I saw kids who didn't drop out because when we still had shop class, when it was a shop class. Chef Tom's culinary program. That's keeping kids in New London High School. Because these are kids who don't want to go to a full 4-year college, but they look at, culinary careers. They like cooking. They like the hospitality. They like working in the kitchens. They like creating with food. And so a lot of these kids end up going up to the casinos and they get very good jobs. So
He's a very talented instructor.
Chef Tom's a wonderful guy. And, he's done a lot to build that program and sustain that program and do amazing things in the community. And I would have loved to have seen that with the trades.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, when you bring up the special master, I mean, that was promulgated by Nick Fisher, who was superintendent at the time. And he kind of ran up to Hartford and almost begged for a state takeover. And based on test scores, if you believe in those, I mean, London has been scraping its knuckles at the bottom of the state, competing with Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven at the bottom, which is not a good place to be when you're trying to attract young families into your community, because the first thing they look at is the quality of the schools.
Yes, but once again, I'll tell anybody in the time I was there that the secret sauce to having a student who's successful in New London Public Schools or any school is really the parent or parents. When you have parents who are active and engaged and they're part of the team. Every year I had parents that I knew I could pick up the phone and call them and say, listen, I have concerns about your student. Let me share with you what's going on. These are things that we need to address. And how can I help you? And they would be on board. When we went to Hartford, it's kind of like the deal where you're going and you're throwing yourself out there to get the best terms you could, because Nick Fisher, he asked for them to come in, but they would have come in anyway sooner or later. And I'd like to think that because we approached them before they came knocking the door down, that we got some more generous terms. And
yeah, well, the special master, his name escapes me, but
I've been trying to think of it myself.
I can visualize him in my mind, but I can't remember his name. But I remember he had been a superintendent in Hartford, I believe.
Right.
But I mean, he argued that New London was unable to properly fund our education system within.
Right.
And he was a major player in almost demanding the community accept this magnet school district K through 12, which we are still in the process of trying to get fully up and running and funded. And with this, if we were to hit certain target levels of out-of-district students, that we would get more funding,
right,
and it would give us the opportunity to provide more opportunities and more resources for the student body.
True.
I'm not sure if we are meeting those goals and standards.
The numbers aren't suggesting it. Part of the deal is that we have to maintain, New London Public Schools needs to maintain a certain percentage of out-of-district students, and it doesn't seem like that's happening. And there's a variety of reasons why that's happening. You still have, you have a largely unjustified and unwarranted perception of New London and New London kids, which I've always found to be a little appalling. It's when I was at the middle school, we had this thing called the Amistad Friendship Society, which was run by the Regional Education Cooperative, Learn, and it brought all the local schools, so Waterford, East Lyme, Groton, Stonington, and a few other schools in our area. And we used the Amistad experience because a movie had just come out. The Amistad was, sailing through Mystic and New Haven, and was docked
I would
in New
stop
London.
in London periodically.
Absolutely. And so we used the movie and the history behind that to bring middle school aged kids together from different districts. And we went on field trips. We went on the Amistad. We did weekend overnight trips at Mystic Seaport. Mystic Seaport was wonderful. And so was the Captain Pinkney, who was the captain of the Amistad at the time. He was a remarkable. I mean, these kids got on the ship. They hoisted sails. They got to stand at the helm. They got to pilot the ship. They got that experience. We sang sea shanties, and I saw friendships bloom between largely white children from the suburbs and the mixed bag of everything. Whites kids,
London
Hispanic kids. It's a wonderful
eclectic mix.
Yes, and it's beautiful, and I love it. My wife and I have lived here for 21 years, and I love our community is vibrant. And when we first started this program, we saw a lot of resistance, and we went to the Wadsworth Athenaeum one time, and one of the docents, we went through this guided tour of the museum, and there's certain collections we're doing, and one of the docents actually came up to me, and I think she was being charitable. She says, "Well, when I heard New London children were coming, I was expecting them to be difficult and a handful, but your children were wonderful." I said, "Well, yes, of course they were." And it's just like, what are you talking about? And so we have a perception that needs to really be addressed. And, we have good children in this town. And as far as education goes, across the board, I mean, COVID really did significant damage, especially in the elementary and middle school ages, but especially in elementary schools. I teach in a Catholic girls' school now in Baltic, and there's an K through 12 or pre-K through 12 elementary school just a couple of buildings down. And it's a small school, and they're struggling with children who, are now in the 4th and 5th grade, whose math skills are horribly deficient, whose reading comprehension skills are horribly deficient, whose socialization skills.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
COVID did a number, and it's a national issue. It's
Yes,
not,
sir.
It's not local. It's across the board.
but New London's our problem.
That's
And
correct.
And what we need to do to address some of these issues is I think we need to approach education in New London, especially in the lower grades, more as coaching than being professorial. It's if I'm on the basketball team and I'm not making free throws, what's the coach going to do? Is he going to throw me off the team? No, he's going to sit there and say, "Hey, Martin, you go work with Olsen. Olsen, you teach him how to stand. You teach him how to hold the ball. You teach him how to focus. You get him to sink 10 buckets before the end of practice today." All right? And then he's going to walk by, he's going to run his practice, he's going to wander by, maybe give his 2 cents in, he's going to teach me, he's going to encourage me, and he's going to give me the attaboy when I improve. Here, we put everything, and this is not New London's fault. I place this stuff largely on the state. We place everything on these big tests. My wife teaches in Wyndham, and tomorrow they're doing benchmark testing, and these kids are frantic about it because it's another big test. And I guarantee you there are teachers and administrators in that school and in all the schools across the state who are making it very clear to these children, this is a big test. You better be prepared tomorrow, show up on time, you need to do well. Everything rides on this test. SATs, PSATs. I mean, even in my private school, I've heard faculty members say, this test is going to make and break your career. Whether you go to a good college or not is totally dependent on this test. Nonsense. That's going to get a kid motivated? No. You're deficient in skills. How can we help you? I do know that I believe is it Winthrop or Nathan Hale are doing year-long curriculum. They're doing a year-long school year where they have several weeks. They have like a week or two break. They have longer breaks for, over the holidays and in the summertime. Letting students, and I love that idea. I suggested that idea 15 years ago and was laughed at by both the union and my administrators and board members when I talked to them. And, nobody's going to give up their summer vacation. Nobody's going to give up their 2-week winter holiday because we can't say Christmas vacation anymore. But it works because you have a kid who's gone for 3 months, 2.5 months. It's not going to be they're going to lose those skills. It's just like if I'm shooting free throws under your tutelage and with the coaching, and now I don't go to the courts at all for 3 months, like those skills are going to still be there? I don't think so. But year-round school I think has a lot going for it. Frankly, when I was in college, I never took time off. I was, summer sessions, I would do at least 1 or 2 of the summer sessions, and it wasn't unusual for me to do a winter session course.
Yeah. One educational model that has fascinated me, and it goes back at least 15 years, was Jeffrey Canada's Harlem Children's Zone, where he started with an incubator about this big. Mm-hmm. And this has expanded to blocks upon blocks upon blocks in Harlem. Yes. Achieving success basically from birth through high school. And a key is parental buy-in, or
yes, sir.
And also getting these kids preschool so that they're not coming in stone cold into kindergarten, where you've got major changes or abilities, I should say, where some kids know their ABCs and can spell and can read, and others that come in and don't know the alphabet. And they've had tremendous success. And I mean, that's been featured on 60 Minutes. And I had suggested to Nick Fisher years ago over lunch, I said, why don't we attempt to bring this gentleman in and discuss what he's doing? Now, I don't necessarily think that a public district can copy what they're doing, no. But we can cherry pick. What can we do? What is he doing that we can do?
And there's a lot that would have worked, and that would work and could work.
And why aren't we doing that as opposed to just, that's different. We don't do that here, and put up a roadblock. And I think that was misguided.
Another very successful program that was launched in inner city Boston, the Boston Latin School.
Yes.
Which was a classical, back in the old days, you had the Tridium and the Quovidium. So you had the basic, reading, writing, basic math, and then as the students mastered those basic skills, then you got deeper into the sciences, and the arts, and following this time-tested sort of classical curriculum that has produced brilliant minds right up until the early 20th century. And it works because every student is is evaluated on his or her strengths and weaknesses and merits. And we also too need to stop looking at school as necessarily being a 50-minute block, a 120-minute block, a whatever minute block. And okay, that's it. I'm done teaching you history today. It's some of the things too is that if I'm struggling in math, then maybe I don't need to be spending as much time in language arts or reading. And let's get me up to speed. Let's get me successful in math. Because I don't know if I mentioned this the last time we spoke, but one of the biggest obstacles I saw to student success is I had students who resented being in a classroom because they didn't know how to do what we were asking them to do. And if you put me in a building where I was unprepared and I knew I was going to be unsuccessful at almost any task, I'm going to hate this place. I'm going to be resentful. I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to be willing because I feel stupid and useless.
Well, you're a step ahead of me. That's why you're the educator. In that, when you have these kids coming into the elementary schools at K or a pre-K, how do they get to middle school or high school and have not met certain criteria each step of the way? We don't hold kids back anymore. I'm not sure if that's a good policy or not, but I know that when I was growing up, lots of kids were held back. It's startling. But maybe these kids weren't ready to be moved forward for whatever reasons. They were not mature enough, they didn't have the basic skills, and by the time they got through high school, they were prepared to graduate. They had the basic skills. And as an employer, I would like to know that I can hire somebody who can add and subtract and do fractions, read a ruler, read directions, etc. Some elementary skills.
When one of the things, I'm a big fan of K through 8, and I'd love to see this elementary and middle school thing just go away. And I'd love to see kids pre-K through 8th grade. And the reason why is because you don't have that pressure of, do I keep this kid back in 5th grade when all of his friends are going to the middle school? And it also opens up that in one campus and in one building, you can tailor a kid's educational experience and address their weaknesses. And even in my school, I teach in a Catholic girls' high school. And I have some students who we do have a lot of international students, and some of them come here very strong in some things. In my coding class, I teach one coding class, one digital skills class, and the rest are history and social studies. But my best coding students, easily, by far, are all my African girls. Ethiopians, Rwandans, a Kenyan girl. These girls are really good coders, better than I am in some cases. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. But these are the same girls that, they might be, superstars in the coding class, but when it comes to, and they might be juniors and seniors, but they might be taking a sophomore language arts class. Why? Because English is a difficult language to read. It's a difficult language to communicate in. And, you talk to anybody who's learning English as a second language, they'll tell you that it's one of the most difficult languages to learn. So if we had a K through 8 school, and if I'm doing really, really well in history, which I used to, and really, really well in language arts, but I'm struggling in math, then there's no shame in me going to, instead of saying 3rd grade math, you go to level 1 math, level 2 math, level 7 math, level 8 math, and you go through those math levels, and if I can prove my mastery in 3 months, then I get to move up a level. And if I continue to progress, then I get to move up a level. And as I gain more confidence, and there's no stigma about me staying back in the 3rd grade and all my friends are across the hall in 4th grade, I'm just going to the one class where I'm weak in and I'm getting some boost in. I'm getting a boost in. And then I develop those skills, and I'm motivated to develop those skills because I want to be in that math class with my buddies. We do that, and you will see a weather change. Because instead of telling kids that you're deficient or you're not good enough to go to the next grade, you're going to sit there and say, no, you're going to still be in the same classes with so-and-so and so-and-so. But for math, we're going to give you a little extra support so you can catch up. That's not rocket scientist. And a newsflash, it doesn't take a $30 million grant from the Federal Department of Education. It just needs a shift in the way we run our schools.
What do you see, or how can we engage and motivate parents that I think isn't concerned?
And it should be. And how do you do that? You don't wait to call them until their kid's messed up. You don't wait to call them until their kid's failing. You don't sit there and pick up the phone, Mr. Olsen, I'm sorry I have to be calling you today, but your son, Marty Jr., is flunking everything. I tried to make contact with parents. Hi, I'm your kid's teacher. I'm teaching him history today, this year. I'm teaching him U.S. history. I'm teaching them economics. It's a pleasure to meet you. Have I seen you in church? I think we go to the same church. I think I've seen you when I've been walking my dog down the street. We get a conversation. I become a human to them, and more importantly, they become a human to me. And we're so programmed.
Do parents feel that engaged? Do they feel comfortable coming into the schools, or do they feel that they're not welcome?
You're
speaking for yourself. I'm not.
Yeah,
you're
you're
not speaking for the district.
Usually when you have a parent in there for like a parent-teacher meeting, they're terrified, and it's generally because they're in there because their kid messed up, and this is something we need to change, and this is something we need to address, and this is something where we need to do more events and bring parents in. And one of the things that, once again, even before, one of the things in my notebook was, how can we do events? Maybe as a Republican town committee, maybe I can get the New London Education Association interested, but how can we use, an auditorium or the lecture hall at the magnet school campus, and or the cafeteria, and how can we invite parents in and just meet them, talk to them, give them some skills. I have parents who sit there and say, I can't help my kid with the economics homework because I can't read it. How can we help them? We have a great adult education program, and I think we need to do more with that. And to engage the community instead of just pulling you in because your kid's messing up or misbehaving. There's also my wife. They started a program at Winthrop when she was there, and it was a behavioral program that worked. But New London cherry-picked what they wanted to use, and they didn't follow the whole program, and it didn't work. It fell apart. Why? Because if you're going to do a program, you do the program. And it was all behavioral. It was about self-empowerment, intrinsic motivation, empowering children in kindergarten, first grade, third grade, and having them reflect on how they're doing today and what they're doing today. And are they being the best student they can be? And we need to get back to basic reading, writing, math skills. We need to change how we, get rid of this social promotion nonsense and coach children, providing flexibility so kids can be taking the reading class they need to be taking the math class they need to be taking, so we can bring these skills up to balance and level them out, so when they hit those 4 years at the high school, they can hit the ground running.
If you can't read, you're severely handicapped.
You're doomed. In the 21st century, you're doomed. And my dad had a very limited education, and he managed to do very, very well. But I remember more than one night where as a 7th grader, I'm helping my dad read the plumbing manuals while he was going for his journeyman's,
Yeah.
And but my dad was the last generation that could get away with that. If you can't read today, you're doomed. You might be able to get away with using a calculator because we carry them in our pockets now. But it's not going to let you
But
analyze
even,
it.
but even a calculator, if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, you don't know if the answers are correct. I mean, if you're inputting information properly, it's...
Or even what the numbers mean. It's in economics. I teach economics, and there is math in economics, but it's all focused. So we're digging into supply and demand shifters and market equilibrium and market shifters. And so I'm throwing numbers at these girls, and I said, relax, because it's all going to make sense. And this is the reason why, you go to Smashburgers, and they can get away with charging you $20 for a hamburger, fries, and a milkshake, because they know that's what you're willing and able to pay. And they know they're going to sell enough of cheeseburgers, french fries, and malteds at that price that they're going to make money, and everybody walks away happy. And then so you're teaching these kids that math is significant, not that it's just another 75 problems you need to do because you need to know math or you need to know history. I can't tell you who the 46 presidents are in order, and I've been teaching it for 26 years. I don't need to know that. What I need to know is why the president is important and what men did well and what they did poorly.
Right. And if you are a student of the presidents, you need to know over the course of time
Yes.
how things have ebbed and flowed and how we've gotten from here to here.
Right. Which is important.
I mean, what would have happened if Lincoln hadn't been assassinated and we didn't have Andrew Johnson?
Yeah.
Who was one of the worst presidents, if not the worst, in the history of our country.
Yeah.
Reconstruction didn't stand a chance.
No, sir.
As an example. This has been fun.
Yes, we need to do this more often.
We can do that. I enjoy having you on here, so we can bring you on periodically, and we can have these discussions. And it appears we're going into the credits. So John, thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Marty.
And we'll do it again, folks. We'll see you again next week on City Focus. Good night.